And today I'm going to make a card, and I'm using a technique that I saw on the Two Peas in a Bucket channel, and it's one using they used some Versamark ink, and they used a product that they sell that it's for masking. And what you do is you stamp, it's a paper that has a repositional adhesive on the side, and you use it for mask. You put it on a piece of paper, you stamp on the mask or on the paper, and then you cut it out, and you can use that for your cards or for anything in order to do a masking technique. Well, I'm going to do the same thing but using regular paper. So this is my regular paper, and I'm using my repositional adhesive. And I'm going to take a brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue, repositional adhesive, and then you're going to coat that paper very well with that repositional adhesive, and then you let it dry. I already have one that I did. And by the way, I put it on the backing of this is wax paper, so that's what I'm using to put my sheet on. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some. I'm going to do, this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure it, and actually I'm going to cut it, and actually it's a little smaller because this is a leftover paper that I got after doing some of my layouts. So this is a leftover sheet, so I don't think it's quite 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. It's actually, let's see, it's actually 4 1/4 by 5. So 4 1/4 by 5. Okay, so I went ahead and cut. So actually we can probably make sure this is 4 1/4 and by 5. Make sure it's by 5. Yeah, by 5. So it kind of, so now I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to use my my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut this out. Okay, after I cut it out, I'm going to go ahead and make some designs. You're going to see I'm going to use some stamps. So I'm going to use, this is for the middle. So in the middle it's going to say happy birthday, and then it's going to have some other designs. So you'll see in a second what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to use my T-score. Yeah. And I'm going to measure in the middle. So my design is going to be here. Then I'm going to go ahead and make some forms here like that. Okay. I gotta make sure that T is right. Let's see. No, I didn't do it right. So actually it's gonna be right here and then right here. Okay, once I do that, I'm gonna cut my pieces. And you can use scissors because it doesn't have to be exact. So you're gonna cut your pieces. Okay. And when I saw this technique, I loved how it looked. So I wanted to reproduce the same thing. So now I'm going to take my card and I'm going to assemble my pieces. So just like a jigsaw puzzle, you just take the backing off of your masking paper and adhere it to the face of the cardstock or the front of your card. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It'll be fine. So now I'm going to start stamping on my card, and I'm going to take the middle piece out, and I'm going to stamp the happy birthday saying on my card. I'm using Colorbox Fluid Ink chalk, and it's the Chestnut Rouge. I think that's the name of it. And I just re-inked that ink pad, so it has a lot of ink on it. So I'm going to stamp the middle with my happy birthday to you saying. And then you got to make sure it's dry before you place the masking tape back on. So off camera I went ahead and dried off the saying or the ink. Now I'm going to put my masking back on. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top masking off, and I'm going to use Versamark. And the Versamark, what it does, it gives a nice dark color. So it darkens the color a little bit more. And I really like that technique of putting Versamark and then drying it. So I'm going to go ahead and dry it with the heat tool. So before you stamp on it, you need to make sure that the Versamark is nice and dry. So now I'm going to take my leaf stamp, and I'm going to use the same brown color fluid ink, and I'm going to ink it, and then I'm going to place it around my card like you see there. And you can use any stamp to do this technique because it'll look good. So it helps if you have a piece of scrap paper underneath, so that way you don't stamp on your table. Okay, so I'm done with that stamping, and now I'm going to put back the masking back on, and I'm going to cover that. Now I'm going to take off the masking from underneath, and I'm going to use a Christmas tree. And it's a nice little Christmas tree. It's kind of had a lot of flourishes. So when you use it on the card, how I'm using it here, you don't even notice that it's a Christmas tree. It looks pretty good. So you go ahead and stamp that. And you want to cover that area that it doesn't have the mask on. Okay, now I'm going to put my masking paper back on, and I'm going to start stamping the lower part of the card. So I'm going to use Versamark for that piece there, and I'm going to use that branch stamp. And actually I didn't use Versamark, I'm sorry. I used Versamark in the next section. So I stamp the branch. And then once you do that, again, put back your mask onto that portion. And it was a little wet, so before you put any mask on, you make sure that it's nice and dry, otherwise you're going to smudge the image. So now in that one, I'm going to go ahead and use some Versamark and to create kind of a dark stripe. And then I'm going to make sure it's dry. I'm going to dry it with the heat gun just to make sure it gets nice and dry before I go ahead and put my next image on there. Okay, this time I'm going to use a flower. So I'm going to go ahead and ink my flower. And it looks good if you kind of stamp off to the edges like I did there. Instead of putting the whole flower onto that area, you just stamp out to the side. Now I'm going to put back that section back on, making sure that it's nice and dry before I put it back on. Okay, now my next section, I'm going to use that wood grain stamp, and I'm using the same brown ink throughout the whole card. And I really like that brown chestnut Rouge or whatever it's called from Colorbox with craft cardstock. It looks very, very good. And I'm almost done with my card. Now my last piece, I'm going to go ahead and use the Versamark. And if you notice, I put Versamark in every other portion. And it looks pretty good when you do that. Make sure that it's dry before you stamp it. And then this time I'm going to use a script. And actually that's a Chinese script stamp. And that will be the last stamp that I use for this card. Okay, so now it's time for the big reveal. So I'm going to take all my masking pieces off. And there's my card, but I'm not done yet because I'm going to want to ink the edges. And I'm also want to put, I'm going to use my T square, and I want to put a line between the top portion and the bottom portion. So I'm going to use some black ink. I didn't have brown ink, or at least I didn't have brown ink available when I was doing this video, so I'm just going to use black ink, and it looks okay. And then I'm going to put another stripe on the bottom. And then I decided, in a second you'll see me, I'm gonna put some more ink around the edges. And I'm gonna use the same brown ink that I've been using for my stamping technique to kind of darken the edges. Now you can also put, which I didn't do here, but you can also put a little bit of a ribbon or twine around the card if you like. And so there's my card. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to color the happy birthday because it needed something. I wanted some more color, like a pop. So I'm using red, and I'm going to just color the letters with some of my red. And then after I made the card, it would have been nice too to put a butterfly, and I didn't do it in the video, but if you make a card similar to mine, you might want to put a butterfly or something like that on the card, and that would also look very nice. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm done with my card, and there you have a single layer card. It can fit in any envelope, but it looks like it has texture, and it looks like three-dimensional. This is my final card, and I hope you like it, and thank you for watching my channel. Bye now.